morning, boys and girls. Remember what happened yesterday? Ireth is sinking into the mud, drowning, and he's going to rely on Poppy to save him. She's getting older now. Do you think she can do it? I don't think she needs anything sad in her life, so I just going to keep my fingers crossed that nothing happens to Ireth. Here we go, chapter 7. A surprise. Poppy tore down to the ground, snatched up a pebble in her mouth, dashed back up, ran out along the branch, and spat the small stone into the nest. Then she ran down to the ground again and grabbed another. Up and down and back and forth she raced. Hurry, hurry, Ireth kept calling. Poppy went as fast as she could. With every pebble she dropped into the nest, the thin branch bent a little lower. Puffing with exertion and growing tired, Poppy dropped yet another pebble into the nest. The branch was now deeply bowed, but still not quite low enough for Ireth to grasp. To make matters worse, the porcupine had sunk even deeper into the mud. Poppy saw just one more possibility. She raced to the end of the branch, grabbed hold of its tip with two paws, and let herself dangle. With the added weight, the branch dipped lower, just over Ireth's head. As she hung there, Poppy shouted, "Ireth, you must get one of your paws free of the mud. Reach up. Try to take hold of the branch. Just don't grab me." While Ireth made a great effort to do as he was told, Poppy began to pump her legs up and down, building momentum so as to bring the branch still lower. Finally, yanking his right paw free, Ireth stretched up the bobbing branch, and his claws remained inches apart. He could not grab it. "Keep trying," yelled Poppy as she pumped her legs even more vigorously so that the branch bobbled lower and lower. Every time the branch dipped, Ireth snatched wildly at it, only to miss, although once or twice his claws scraped the wood just above Poppy's paws. As Poppy worked harder, Ireth stretched as far as he could with his paw, and "Got it!" he cried at last. "Now," Poppy shouted, "grab hold with two paws. Then haul yourself up." Using the branch for leverage, Ireth pulled another paw free from the mud and seized the branch firmly with two paws. Though the clumps of wet and sticking mud to his prickly back made him extremely heavy, Ireth began to heave himself out of the creek. "Pull harder," yelled Poppy. Ireth continued to pull up on the branch until he was out of the mud. "Now," Poppy urged, her own rear legs just gazing above the mud, moved toward dry land. Clinging to the branch, Ireth edged forward from the creek bank. "You're almost there," Poppy shouted. The moment Ireth saw he was over firm ground, he let go of the branch. But as Ireth fell, the branch whipped up like the released arm of a catapult. The sudden movement caught Poppy completely by surprise, flinging her with such enormous force that she went shooting straight up in the air. Oh my goodness, Poppy gasped as the wind rippled through her fur and bent back her whiskers. I'm flying! Sure enough, she was soaring up in the air, dizzyingly high. She darted a look below. From the banks of Glitter Creek, Ireth was staring up at her, open-mouthed in astonishment. Even in the moment she looked at him, he became smaller. Poppy glanced towards the west. The twilight sky offered a glowing sunset, all red, purple, and orange. Oh my, she cried. So this is what the sky is like. It's really quite lovely, and flying is very cooling. No wonder birds like it. Poppy looked down again. The individual treetops were mending together to become a vast expanse. Goodness, it's the entire forest, she exclaimed. How different everything looks from a distance. Then she felt herself slowing. That brought a frightful realization. If I stop rising, I'll start falling. And since I've gone up such a long way, when I hit the ground, it will most likely be the death of me. For a fraction of a second, Poppy hung suspended in the air. Then she began to drop, plummeting faster and faster, though her heart pounded, and she closed her eyes. Her thoughts were very clear. Who would have ever guessed that I'd end my life by falling out of the sky? And here's a picture of Poppy falling. I don't even want to try to make a prediction at this time. Does anybody come up with a good prediction? Anybody got any ideas if anything could possibly happen that would save Poppy's life? I don't know. We'll just have to see what happens. Chapter 8, Lucy in the Sky. Poppy was still falling when she suddenly felt her skin pricked and then grabbed. Not only did she stop dropping, she was actually rising in short, jerky movements. Bewildered, she opened her eyes. She was being held higher than she had been before. The forest below was moving by very quickly. I'm not going to die by falling, she decided. I'm going to be eaten by some bird. She twisted her head around and looked up. To her complete surprise, the creature carrying her was not a bird. At first glance, it appeared to be a mouse, not much bigger than she. It had brown fur and bright black eyes, but the creature's nose was large for its pushed-in face, had flaring nostrils, and was not sharp like a mouse's. Its ears were very large and pointy. Most astonishing of all were the great leathery wings extending from the creature's body, wings that whipped the air with such rapidity they were hard to see. A bat had grabbed her. Poppy quickly recalled the things she had heard about bats, that they were strange, perhaps even magical creatures given to violent and erratic mischief, that they guided themselves through the air in a mystifying fashion, that bats, for no good reason at all, constantly attacked other creatures, even ate them, and that they entangled themselves in animals' fur, biting, scratching, and spreading all kinds of ghastly diseases. In short, bats were to be absolutely avoided. What to do? Clearly, she could not get away, not unless she wanted to fall. Perhaps speaking to the frightful thing would help. Poppy took a deep breath and called up, "Hello there, can you hear me?" "Oh, hi," the bat squeaked. "Were you talking to me?" "I was," said Poppy. "Are you a bat?" "Oh, sure." "What's your name?" "My full name is Myotis Lufagus, but my friends call me Lucy." "Lucy? I think it's nicer than Fugus," the bat went on. "Or my," here's the picture of the bat with Poppy. "Or my. And Otis is a boy's name and I'm a girl." "Oh, what's your name?" "Poppy." "Boy or girl?" "Well, girl." "Miss Poppy, I like that. I suppose I should thank you for catching me," said Poppy. "Otherwise, I'd have fallen, probably been killed." "That would have been awful," agreed Lucy. Poppy hesitated for a moment and then said, "Lucy, why did you grab me?" What a question," said Lucy, her voice full of surprise. "What do you think?" "Because I'm going to eat you." "Eat me?" cried Poppy, her worst fears confirmed. "Why would you want to do that?" "I think everybody eats something," said Lucy, only to add, "Don't they?" "I suppose," admitted Poppy, "but I don't think you'd get much pleasure out of eating an old mouse." "Mouse?" cried Lucy. "No way. Are you a mouse, really?" "From the tip of my nose to the tip of my tail," Poppy hastened to say. "Miss Poppy," squeaked the bat, "I am so embarrassed. This is my first solo flight, and I thought you were a moth." "How could you possibly mistake me for a moth?" Poppy sputtered. "Well, you were right up in the air over the forest," Lucy said, "and that's where moths are, right?" "They're really tasty," the bat giggled. "See, I've never met a mouse before, but now I know that mice fly too. I'm glad to let you go." Lucy started to loosen her grip. "Oh, no, don't," cried Poppy. "I can't fly." "Can't you?" said the bat. Then how did you get up in the air?" "It is too hard to explain," said Poppy, looking down at the darkening earth. "Do you think you could just put me down on the ground gently?" "Sorry," said Lucy, "I can't. I'm late." "Late for what?" "Mom told me to take my first flight, grab a snack if I could, and then get back home. I know, hard to believe that at my age I actually have a curfew, but I do. How old are you? Poppy asked. 3 weeks. And did you say this was your first flight? Really exciting, isn't it? Said the bat, as she made a sudden sharp turn, abrupt enough to startle Poppy. Poppy, resigned to being carried along, caught her breath and looked down and about. The last rays of setting sun were cutting across Dimwood's treetops, so that the whole forest seemed edged with gold. The sky had been transformed into a panoramic, multi-hued rainbow of blue, orange, and pink. How huge the sky is, thought Poppy. How beautiful. This is certainly a lovely way to see the world. As always, seeing something lovely made Poppy think of Rye, who would have written a poem about such an extraordinary sight. But these pleasant thoughts were cut short when Lucy abruptly plunged to a lower altitude. They were now just skimming over the treetops. "Oh my," exclaimed Poppy, almost breathless. "Am I flying poorly?" Lucy asked. "Just fine," Poppy managed. She tried to determine where she was, telling herself she would need to return home on her own. Lucy, however, was going so fast it was hard to pick out landmarks. Besides, the sun was all but down. The only light was coming from the far west. Lucy dipped deeper among the tall, dark trees, darting around them with such sharp turns and shifts. Poppy became giddy. "Do you live in a tree?" she asked. "Oh no, we live in a cave." Even as she spoke, the young bat broke away from the trees, flying swiftly, if somewhat erratically. Lucy was now heading right towards a high cliff. As far as Poppy could see, it was a wall of solid stone. "Lucy," cried Poppy, "there's a rock cliff straight ahead. Shouldn't you turn?" "I don't think so," said Lucy, continuing to fly straight toward the face of the rock. Poppy had no doubt the young bat was about to crash. She closed her eyes and said, "Goodbye, world." Goodness, goodness, goodness. What an experience for Poppy to be having. If she lives, it's going to be a great story to tell her grandchildren. Chapter 9. What Ireth thought he saw. "I'm safe," Ireth shouted when he plunged down from the branch and landed on the creek bank. With a quick shake of his head, body, and tail, he flung off the mud that coated him. Only then did he look around for Poppy. He was actually going to thank her. Poppy, however, was nowhere to be seen. Puzzled, Ireth peered up at the branch that Poppy had managed to pull down. That was when he saw his friend streaking straight up into the twilight sky. "Poppy," he gasped, watching with disbelief as the mouse soared upward. "Is that you?" Ireth stared into the sky until the mouse appeared to stop rising and then began to fall. The porcupine held his breath. The next very moment, something, Ireth wasn't sure what it was, or even if it was something, appeared out of the sky, snatched Poppy away, and then vanished. Astonished, Ireth could not move. Instead, he continued to study the darkening sky where Poppy had been. Was that truly Poppy? If it was Poppy, how did she get up there? And if she did get up there, what happened to her? Baffled, Ireth continued to stare at the sky, not sure he could or should believe what he had seen. Did I imagine everything? Ireth asked himself. Was I missing Poppy so much I just dreamed she saved me? He had seen Poppy rising into the sky only to disappear. No, that was impossible. But then where was she? Utterly mystified, the porcupine searched about the creek bank. He studied the mud. He scrutinized the sky again. Not a single sign of Poppy did he find. I must, he decided, just have imagined it all. A mouse in the sky, flying, disappearing. That's just not possible unless I'm crazy. Determined to convince himself that he had only imagined what had happened, Ireth galloped home, taking pains to follow the exact route he had used when coming to Glitter Creek. It was dark, and Ireth was quite worn out when he reached the foot of Poppy's snag. Poppy, he cried, come out, it's me, Ireth. There was no reply. Poppy, he shouted with a mix of agony and rage, answer me. Still no answer. Poppy, Ireth pleaded, please, all I ask is that you tell me you're here, that you're safe. Then I promise I'll go away forever. He waited, all the while watching the snag intently. Maybe she's just playing a trick on me, he muttered, hardly knowing whether to be frightened or furious, but desperately wanting some explanation. Yes, that's it. She's playing a practical joke on me. As if it's funny to disappear like that, leaving no trace, no note or words, no respect, no caring, no friendship, no love, no nothing. Well, I'll do the same. I'll ignore her, forget her, pluck her out of my memory, out of my heart, act as if she never existed, as if we never did anything together, as if I never cared for her, ever. Sighing deeply, Ireth remained silent for a moment, only to lift his head and wail. Poppy, please tell me what happened to you. But I do know what happened, Ireth reminded himself. She saved me, then went up in the air and disappeared. But how can that be true? A new explanation formed in his mind. Perhaps Poppy had fallen into the creek and had sunk the way he did. In the twilight gloom, he just hadn't noticed. Ireth's heart gave a lurch. I must still try to save her. He raced back to Glitter Creek. As he scurried along, his mind was in a muddle of self-reproach. I should have checked more. I should have searched harder. What a dunce I am. What an idiot. How cruel and unthinking. There I was, only thinking about myself. How selfish. How vain. How stupid. How like me. Panting and exhausted, Ireth reached the bank of the creek. Pale yellow moonlight filled the heavy, warm air and lay upon the empty creek bed like a golden carpet, softening the rough edges of the drought-parched landscape. Crickets endlessly, mindlessly rubbed their legs together. Mosquitoes droned. "Poppy," Ereth cried into the darkness. "Are you here? Are you drowning? Please, please tell me you are drowning so I can save you." The last words were spoken in the feeblest of voices, a voice tinged with complete despair. Bleary-eyed and quite frightened, Ireth attempted yet again to make sense of what had happened. He closed his eyes. It was too extraordinary, too awful, too dreadful. Even so, there were a couple of things about which he was now quite convinced. He had seen Poppy fly into the air, and then she had disappeared. Poppy, in order to save her best friend, him, had sacrificed herself. The painful fact made him groan. But since he was now convinced of what had happened, Ireth made himself say aloud the awful words he was thinking. "While saving me, Poppy died." As he spoke, he began to fully understand what he had witnessed. Could it have been? Might it have been possible? There's no other explanation. What I saw rising into the sky must have been, was Poppy's ghost. Okay, we're gonna stop there for today. We're gonna do a cliffhanger one day early. That way we'll be able to wrap it up tomorrow and see what happens before the weekend. I don't know, boys and girls. Bye.